Broadcasting the information the mainstream media won't touch. This is The Richie Allen Show in association with DavidIke.com.
Very excited that our next guest has agreed to come on the programme. Amazing our paths haven't crossed in the past, but there you go. There's always a first time for everything. I did mention at the top of the programme is that he is an author, and I'll tell you some of his books, and I know many of you have read his books because you've been telling me about it all day on email and on social media. Amongst his books are Bloodlines of the Illuminati, Deeper Insights into the Illuminati Formula, and the Illuminati Formula used to create an undetectable, total, mind-controlled slave. You can find him online at pentracks.com. That's pentracks.com. It's terrific to welcome the multi-talented author, broadcaster and researcher, Fritz Springmeier. Fritz, welcome to the programme. How are you?
Hey, hello to you and hello to all of our listeners out there.
Great to have you on, Fritz. It really is. And like I said, great excitement today when I announced on Facebook and on Twitter that you were coming on the programme. Well, I'll tell you where I'm going to start, because I mentioned at the beginning of the programme, I was looking at your Facebook page today, and you very kindly mentioned you were coming on to let your legions, tens of thousands of followers know you were coming on the programme. And what was interesting was you mentioned what I feel is last year's most incredible, staggering, amazing, I suppose viral is a word you could use, story, and that is the Hampstead Heath story. And I said to myself, the fact that you mentioned it today, what better place to start? And first of all, ask you, what do you know of that case, Fritz, about those two young children whom allegedly witnessed unspeakable things happening at their school in London, and all the fallout from that, and you know, the many opinions that have been expressed about it, whether it's real, whether it's a hoax? What are your thoughts on that particular case?
Well, you know, Hampstead Village there is in your neck of the woods, and so the listeners over there in the United Kingdom probably know more about the case than I do, but in case they don't know, you know, Hampstead Village is a place where there's more millionaires in that little village than any other place in the United Kingdom. So we're looking at people with a lot of money. It's also known for having bohemian types and intellectual artistic types there. And so we have some children that are saying that they're satanic ritually abused. And we have a mother who came from Russia. And then we have what appears like, instead of the police investigating this, they're trying to cover it up and coming down hard on the whistleblowers. I don't know the details of this as well as some of your listeners right there in the area, the ins and outs, but it certainly follows the patterns of a lot of other things that we've seen. The system, the people that we should trust, the church and the state, they're involved in this trauma-based mind control. And unfortunately, generally the police will cover up these kind of things because they're involved in it. And so the truth, it's hard to get the truth to come out. You know, the Mark Dutroux affair over there in Belgium, it eventually became bad enough that they had to allow Mark Dutroux to take the fall, but it actually involved over there in Brussels and Belgium a lot of the government of Belgium. And so these things reach high up into the stink reaches high up. And so why do they do this trauma-based mind control? Well, it's like I've said before, it gives evil people the power to carry out any deed totally undetected. So if we get a chance to get into how this mind control works, why it'll make more sense to people, why they use the children like this. They start the programming with satanic ritual abuse when the children are growing up. So they start the mind control when they're when they're little, you know.
I definitely want to get into this, Fritz, and we're going to go straight into this, into the methods they use and how they do it. And our listeners will be aware that Fritz has spoken for many years about Project Monarch, which was a CIA mind control project. And, you know, Fritz has worked with Cassie O'Brien, who's been on this programme before as well. We'll get into all of that. Fritz, just to tidy that up, because you're absolutely right, by the way. You're there in the United States. We are closer to the story. For our listeners who don't remember, Ella Draper and her partner, Abraham Christie, made allegations. They released some videos of Ella's children, two very young children, talking about alleged abuse that they witnessed at their school in Hampstead Heath. The claims made were that there was a 100 plus strong satanic paedophile ring operating around a primary school in Hampstead Heath, and that terrible things were happening to children there. And the videos which we saw on YouTube of the 8-year-old and the 9-year-old describing these things, awful things, and you know, talking about children being murdered and children being raped, were staggering. We'd never seen anything like it before in the alternative media. Children saying these things on camera, and the independent media was divided between people who thought that it might be credible and people who said that it couldn't be. I did what any, you know, half decent journalist should do, and that is keep your own opinion out of it. And I was happy to talk about the claims that the children made with Sabine McNeill on this programme. But it was a terrible, terrible thing to see those children saying that. Those children are now in the care of the state, of course, as Fritz was alluding to there. Terrible, terrible story that, and I don't know if we'll ever get to the bottom of it on this programme. 14 minutes past the hour. Check out Fritz at pentracks.com. That's pentracks.com. Fritz, great to have you on the programme. I'm going to shut up now, hand it over to you. Listeners want to talk about how the Illuminati, how the hidden families, how they practice mind control. How does it work on great swathes of the population who are completely in the dark about it, don't even realise it's happening? How do they go about doing this? What are the tools they use to do it?
Okay, yeah, let's get into this trauma-based mind control. It goes by a lot of names. Some people have heard about Monarch programming, or they've heard about the CIA project MKULTRA. So that's the what. It goes by different names. It's really covered up. In fact, the problem is when people that have been subjected to this type of mind control get examined by psychiatrists and psychologists, they're often misdiagnosed. You know, they say, oh, affective anxiety disorder, bipolar, or they say that they're histrionic or paranoid, schizophrenic, schizoaffective. They have all, or post-traumatic stress syndrome. They have all of these mislabels. And, you know, you can go back and historically look at some big news stories. You know, we had someone over here called Charlie Manson. I'm sure most of the people over there in England have heard of Charlie Manson. He was a programmed multiple. This whole thing works off of splintering the mind and making it into a multiple personality. And so oftentimes, you know, these things start out with children that are orphans, you know, and Charlie Manson said that one time his mother sold him for a pitcher of beer to a childless waitress, you know.
Wow.
So when the shrinks went in and looked at him, what did they label him? They said, well, he's schizophrenic and he's paranoid delusional disorder. Well, one of the things about this mind control is the people that have MPD, which is now called DID. MPD stands for multiple personality disorder, and DID means dissociative identity disorder. When they go in and take the MMPI, I don't know if they use the MMPI test over there in the UK, but in the United States, that's a standard test that they give to see what your personality is like, or what disorders you might have. Well, when people take the MMPI, the schizophrenic and the program multiple answer a couple of the questions exactly the same way. So that allows these shrinks to misdiagnose them. But like Ted Bundy, he was another one of these program multiples. We had this serial killer called Ted Bundy. I'm sure your people over there probably heard about him too. And he was on, he was on the Seattle Crime Commission. He was on Nelson Rockefeller's presidential campaign in '68. Well, the first shrink that went in, she goes, well, he's got bipolar disorder. But then when she was around him a lot more, she realized he was switching personalities. And then she realized this guy's MPD. He's multiple personality. So this also explains like a lot of history. For people wonder, well, why could Hitler 1 hour be talking to people in a convincing way that he wanted peace, and the next hour talking to his generals about starting World War II? It's because Hitler was a multiple personality. And all of this went back to the ancient mystery religions, to the pharaohs. And so why would you, if you were Pharaoh, want your children to be programmed like this? Well, as a Pharaoh, you wanted to make sure that your child was exactly like what you wanted them to be. So that's why they got into this mind control. So your elite families, your German, Scottish, Dutch, Italian, English families, these elite families were doing this trauma-based mind control for centuries. And now in the 20th century, in the 21st century, it's now gotten out of hand. It's no longer just being done by these abusive elite families. It's being done by our intelligence agencies like MI5, MI6, CIA, NSA. Why would the CIA want to do this type of trauma-based mind control? Well, because it produces the perfect spy. You compartmentalize their mind. If your spy gets captured by the other side and tortured, they'll just switch to a personality that likes torture. And the foundation of this mind control is incredible sadistic amounts of trauma and torture. So that's why someone like Charles Manson or Ted Bundy, they have been tortured their whole lives. So they don't think anything of torturing and traumatizing and doing sadistic murders on other people.
Now, Fritz, sorry to interrupt, they weren't used by the system in the way that you've described. And this is brilliant stuff, by the way. I'm really interested in this. Delighted that you're on the programme. Speak to why the likes of Bundy and Manson. Bundy went around the country killing women, and Manson did, or allegedly did, what he did to Sharon Tate and to others. Why were they cast-offs then from that program? Is that how it works, Fritz?
Well, no. See, in the 1960s, the CIA was investigating how cults could be created to control people. So they set up a number of cults. In 1967, Charlie Manson came into San Francisco and established himself as a guru. Yeah, he was just a criminal, and he was this program multiple. But the people, mostly women that he had, were in his cult, were programmed multiples. They were all programmed multiples. And so the CIA was trying to see how can we, and that wasn't the only religious group that they created. They created a whole number of religious groups. They worked through these little cults that they have created. Jim Jones was another CIA operation where a lot of the people in the Jim Jones cult were under this trauma-based mind control. So they were exploring how do you use God or something like this, or Charlie Manson said he was Christ. How do how do you set some religious figure up, and how they were working at the dynamics of this. In the 50s, they had tried to perfect the mind control with an individual. And then in the 60s, they were upgrading to how you apply this mind control to small groups. And now they've been trying to upgrade it to how do you control an entire country with this mind control.
And there's some load of questions on this, Fritz. There's a load of questions on this, load of comments. I better mention a few and then I'll shut up again and get out of your way. But there's loads of questions on this today, and loads of comments. David Kona on Twitter says, Fritz is an awesome guest. He's got me thinking about John Wayne Gacy and Gacy's political connections. Now, if I'm right, Gacy was a mass murderer who targeted young men. If I'm not mistaken, but maybe Fritz might want to speak to that in a second. Alex Doust was on Twitter. How you doing, Alex? To say Hitler's mind was addled with a cocktail of drugs he was given daily by his doctor. I wonder if that contributed. We often see, Fritz, don't we, in these mass shootings, we often see the mugshots of these alleged mass shooters, these gunmen, that their eyes are often blank and staring into space, and their pupils are fixed and dilated, and we learn later on that they were taking psychotropic drugs. I know you'll have something to say about that as well. Angela was on to say, sadly, the religion of evil is as real as all the others, but its number one rule is secrecy to all outsiders, to their prey. The Order was on to say, does Fritz believe that religion in the Middle East is using Sharia law and twisted words from the Quran to raise children using the same ideas as MKULTRA? That's a great question, that, Fritz. Are we seeing this playing out in the Middle East with some of these crazy jihadists running around with groups like ISIS doing absolutely unspeakable things to people? Is any of that relevant to what we're talking about?
Yes, it is. Exactly. Unfortunately, this trauma-based mind control has spread all over the world. Years ago, to give you an example of what I'm talking about, years ago, I was at a security conference. I was to be a speaker. This was right next door to where it was at a Sheraton, real close to where the CIA has their headquarters in Northern Virginia. Anyway, the embassies around the world all sent their delegations to this conference. And there were only 3 countries out of the entire world where their delegates would stop and talk to me. It was obvious that they had been told not to interact with me at all, because their heads would turn and they would march past my booth. The reason why I mention that is just to get people aware of how widespread this is. It's gone around the world, and many governments are involved. And so the Western intelligence agencies, MI6 and CIA, are really behind the ISIS phenomenon. But Mossad is doing this kind of trauma-based mind control. So sometimes when Israel needs a terrorist so that they can get the world's sympathy, you'll see when the world is coming down hard on Israel for doing something wrong, and the UN has they've passed resolutions against Israel. The next thing you'll notice is there'll be some Muslim that will blow up a school bus of Israeli children. Well, this is really not Arabs doing this. Ultimately, what it is Israel needs a terrorist act to get the world sympathy. So these people that they have used trauma-based mind control on, they activate one of these people. And so right now, a lot of these people in Europe and in the Middle East that are doing these horrendous things are under this trauma-based mind control. Unfortunately, it's spread to the Muslim community too, and it's being used to create terrorists.
Here's a question for you, Fritz. Because you mentioned Israel, could the likes of the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, could he be somebody placed in the position that he's in because he's been subject to this mind control himself in his formative years, because he's desensitized to the suffering and the misery of human beings in the West Bank and in Gaza. And that question was actually put to us by Sean on email, and it's a very good question. Are some of the leaders of some of the Western democracies and some of the superpower countries possibly themselves products of mind control?
Yes, definitely. There's different levels of mind control, but yeah, definitely the majority of them have been subjected to some level of mind control. Not all of them trauma-based mind control, but definitely are the majority of them are subjected to some type of mind control. And yes, you're right. They're insensitive. Although they make pretensions of caring about people, really ultimately they don't.
And this is fascinating, Fritz, because we're really being played like clowns then, us as civilians, because I'm doing my monologue at the beginning of the programme and I'm attacking the British Prime Minister David Cameron for his inhumane, I would say criminal, well, it's beyond criminal, decisions that he makes to affect people in this country. And there I'm thinking that while not giving this guy a pass, because we're not giving him a pass, who knows what this guy's been subjected to while he was at university, while he was at college. By the way, I must mention David Icke, who is, of course, a great friend and colleague of mine, just sent me a message to say that he met Fritz a long time ago in the United States and wants to give Fritz his absolute best wishes. So David Icke just listened to the programme now, Fritz, big supporter of your work and what you've been doing. So he sends you his best, my friend. Sends you his best.
Thank you, David Icke. And, we're all in this together. We all need to stick together. We may have different religious views. We may have different ideas on different things, but we are in this together. And we are the common people. We are not each other's enemies. There's examples of where people have come together and worked against tyranny. And I was just writing last night about some 6 villages in France during World War II that worked together, even though they had different religious beliefs. Some were Protestants, Catholics, some were agnostics. And so we need to have that spirit of cooperation, and that's what I appreciate about David, is that he realizes that and doesn't get caught up in because what they're doing to the population is really basically the same thing that they do with the victim of trauma-based mind control. What they do to the victim of trauma-based mind control is they split them up into competing personalities that are all programmed, that hate each other. And so
we see this in the independent media, don't we? In the alternative media, we see this very thing. And this, people turning on one another. And you quite rightly said there, David has avoided that. In fact, he's a big champion of the independent media and doesn't get involved in that. But Fritz, again, I'm going to be honest, I'm not just saying this. I've not really considered that until now. Now, I know David will probably say later on, Richie, I told you this before, and he probably did, but I've not considered that sort of mind control is being directed at people working within the independent media. But it makes perfect sense that it must be.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
I am naive, Fritz. I'm a naive guy a lot of times, but yeah, it must be happening, of course.
When I started exposing the world system and their New World Order agenda and the mind control and everything back in 1990, I expected that some of the other people out there that were doing similar things would be friends and treat me as a colleague. And I found out, no, actually, the majority of people out there are actually working for the system. there's a book, 1984, that I'm sure that a lot of your listeners are familiar with. And when this guy tries to leave Big Brother's rule, that Big Brother has actually set up something. He set up his own opposition. And so that's what they do, is they set up their own opposition. So I found that out the hard way, is that people I thought would be friends would turn on me and stab me in the back. They would be out there saying slanderous lies about me. They wouldn't even know me, and they would be tearing me apart. And you would think, well, these are supposed to be people on helping
on the same side,
fight the tyranny, you know, and yet they're tearing me apart. So and like I say, it's what gives evil the power to carry out all these things, and it's totally undetectable. It's really hard. I mean, once you're familiar with it, and you know the clues, you can start picking up these kind of things. It's like this teacher was telling me that one of her students was just giving her fits, that it was driving her crazy. And the more I listened, I said, you know what you've got there? You've got someone that's been subjected to this trauma-based mind control. I said, is it okay with the school if I have you and her out for lunch and we, get to know this girl a little bit better? Well, it turns out that this young girl, I'm trying to remember, she was like in 3rd or 4th grade. She had tried to tell the school officials how she was being sexually abused and satanic ritually abused, and the school covered it up. So this is the problem that we have, is people ask, well, how can this be going on and we don't hear about it? It's because the people in positions of power that are supposed to be protecting us are actually, this thing is so widespread that the people that we're hoping are going to protect the children are actually part of the problem.
Fritz, it's 24 minutes. It's actually 26 minutes to the top of the hour. I'm going to take a very quick 60-second ad break. When I come back, I'm going to give out your website details again, and then we'll have 20 minutes. There's some really interesting questions coming in on this from our listeners. Delighted to have you on the programme. Fritz's website is Pentracks, and Tracks is Tracks, pentracks.com. Links there to Bloodlines of the Illuminati, Illuminati Formula, and Be Wise as Serpents, as well as Fritz's other books. That's Pentracks.com. Thanks for staying with me, my friend. Don't go anywhere. It's a really short 60-second break. Back with more from Fritz Springmeier after these.
Have you lost access to important data from a computer hard drive, mobile phone, or other storage device? Maybe you have a broken hard drive containing years of information, or a smartphone that no longer works from which you'd like the pictures, movies, and chats recovered. If you would like to recover data from any type of digital device, including desktop and laptop computers, external hard drives, cameras, smartphones, NAS, and RAID servers, then contact Data Clinic today at dataclinic.co.uk now.
Do you want to release the full potential of your soul consciousness and find out how to experience that power in all areas of your life now? Go to livingasyoursoul.com for free guidance with in-depth how-to articles, free healing meditations of creation recordings, free soul solutions, and much, much more. livingasyoursoul.com, making the profound practical.
Broadcasting the information the mainstream media won't touch. This is The Richie Allen Show in association with DavidIke.com.
Welcome back to the programme. Pentracks.com is where you'll find Fritz and all his books. And I'm going to mention it because it's only right and proper. David's brand new book, which hits the bookshelves in February, late February, early March time, but it can be ordered now on DavidIke.com. That's Phantom Self. David speaks at length on this issue of mind control as well. So do check it out, Phantom Self at DavidIke.com. Thrilled that the terrific Fritz Springmeier, I should say, is staying with us for the next 20 minutes before we run out of time. But Fritz has committed to coming back next month to doing a full programme with us where he can answer your questions. Fritz, thanks for very much. Thrilled, really, really delighted that you're on the programme. We love doing that. Listeners demanding to hear certain guests. And then when we ask them and they come on, it makes my life so much easier, Fritz. It really is terrific. Now listen, tell me this. Loads of listeners, Angela, Karen, JP, Daniel Ford on Twitter. How you doing, Daniel? Nice to hear from you. Richie, will Fritz talk about the entertainment industry and how it is used as a tool of mind control? Well, this is a whole can of worms. What do you say to that, Fritz? The entertainment industry, films, programs, music for our children, what is it doing?
Well, wow, that's such a big subject, but I want to, oh boy, where to start in, but the entertainment industry was created by the powers that should not be. The USO programs back in World War II and the US government creating big bands and everything. And one of the purposes of these entertainers that travel around is they use them to run drugs. And so it's important that they have people that are programmed multiples, because they're doing a lot behind the entertainment industry. And also, when we get into professional sports like American football and hockey are very brutal contact sports, and it helps to have people that are dissociative so that, they can play better. And then they also, they use this mind control in so many different ways with the entertainment industry. And they're also, they are afraid that anybody who would become made into an idol not be controllable. Because let's say that you have somebody who's become an idol, let's say like the Beatles.
Yeah, John Lennon, came to mind straight away.
If they were to say anything that the powers that should not be don't want said, they could cause a lot of trouble. So across the board, these people in the entertainment industry have been compromised. A large share of them have had to make a pact where they sell their soul to Satan. And I know that sounds outrageous, but that's what happens. And then they've been subjected to this mind control. I have been watching like Dolly Parton one time when she was on stage, and I just, right there in front of the audience, she was doing all this stuff showing that she's a program multiple, and they were doing their little triggers with her and everything. Well, when people read my books, you'll be able to see this stuff for yourself. It's right out there in plain sight, and you'll be going, oh, wow. You'll be amazed. You'll be shocked. You'll wonder why you didn't see it before, but people tend to see what they expect to see. And so but here's an example of somebody who's in entertainment, Roseanne Barr. Roseanne Barr is a program multiple, and she's gotten enough therapy that she realizes she's a multiple personality, and she's gone on and she's talked about this on public television. So there's a few of these actors that have actually come out and said a little bit about it, but in general, most of them are going along with the whole program. And you look at someone like Paris Hilton. She comes from elite bloodline. And not everybody that's a program multiple is from an elite bloodline, because, like I say, unfortunately, this thing's proliferated where now it's just out of control totally. It's no longer within these elite bloodlines.
Do you know what, Fritz? Do you know what actually speaks to me there, you saying that? What resonates, I shouldn't keep saying speaks to me, what resonates with me is the whole facade of the US general election. And at the moment, we're in the primary stages. We're having the primaries, the primary debates, and you have to be talking about mass mind control to get a population of a country, 300 million people, to accept the same families over and over again, Fritz, to accept the Clintons, to accept the Bush family. Now we have multi-billionaire Donald Trump. A number of listeners have said, ask Fritz about mind control as it relates to the US presidential election in terms of the candidates themselves and how the people just, kind of blissfully just accept these are the people that we have to choose between, and that's the way it is, so we just get on with it. Great question, I think. Great aspect of all of this. What do you think?
Well, the answer is a little complex. We don't select nor do we elect our presidents over here in the United States, but the process by which the votes are counted and rigged is it's locality by locality. They do it differently. There was a book that exposed how the voting machines are rigged. But it's different from county to county. And then as far as how the candidates are compromised, they're all compromised. But it's different. Not all of them are program multiples, but definitely some of them. Just like our last President Bush, he's a multiple personality. That's why I have a book of all the stupid things that George Bush said. And while he was president, at one point he was quoted, and it's obvious from his quote that he doesn't know about the legislative, executive, and judicial branch. Now, how could someone who's president be so stupid not to even know the three parts to government? It's because he was a multiple personality.
I know, Fritz, can I ask this? In your opinion then, was George W. Bush the 43? I think he was the 43rd president. So do you think there's evidence in his demeanour and in his behaviour that some of the ritualistic, horrible abuse that we talked about earlier, he would have been exposed to that as a child, whether viewing it, participating in it, or being a victim of it, do you think?
Oh, yes, definitely.
Wow, Fritz.
We're talking about a satanic bloodline. And yes, and this is the kind of stuff I've been trying to expose. And then, of course, there was a backlash. The people that are in power don't like people like myself. So I've gone through my share of backlash from it all, exposing it. But you've
had a difficult time of it in the past, and we don't necessarily need to get into that, but you have to put up with the same nuisance that David Icke has had to put up with for years and years and years, as well as the external harassment. You've also had to deal with the genuine incredulity of people, because it's genuine. Now, David speaks about this in his new book, which it's terrific the way he goes into it. And you've gotten into this before as well, because I've been listening to you doing interviews with other people as research for this. And that is dealing with the incredulity. Because, Fritz, I have come to understand that what you're saying is right. I believe it. I used to think people like you were lunatics and you were mad and you shouldn't be anywhere near a television show or a radio show. But thankfully, I've seen that things are a lot different than I believed. But you know what, Fritz? The vast majority of people who might pick up the podcast of this programme or watch it on davidicke.com tomorrow, they'll say, nah, crazy. Can't be happening this. How can he say that? How can he say the president, has been exposed to this when he was younger? And that's what you're up against all the time. How do you put up with that? How do you deal with that? Constantly trying to change people's minds.
Well, we were all at that point where we were ignorant. When I say ignorant, I don't mean people are stupid. They're just not informed. But learning is a step-by-step process. And if somebody wants to, you can go online, and there is online now, there's all kinds of proof, government documents showing the MKULTRA program. Admiral Sansfield Turner, he was the DCI of the CIA, that means the director. in 1977, he went before Congress, and he told Congress about this mind control, this MKUltra. He, in public, said 80 American institutions are participating with the CIA in doing this mind control. He was saying prisons, hospitals, universities, this structure of mind control's all over. And he said that publicly before Congress. I mean, that's what he had to admit. And so if a person really sincerely starts investigating this, and you start reading, there's books out about people that have been subjected to this mind control. Candy Jones, talk about entertainment industry. Candy Jones was in the entertainment industry. So there's a book, The Control of Candy Jones, Hypnotism in the CIA is the subtitle. You start reading these and book after book, example after example, you start seeing the patterns, and you see it's out there. Once you catch on, you're going to start teaching yourself. You're going to see it everywhere for yourself. You're not going to need Fritz to tell you about this. You're going to be bumping into it yourself. I had a neighbor. He was a teacher at a seminary near my house, and he thought I was crazy because I was talking about program multiples. And then he had a student start living with him, and she happened to be a program multiple, and he found out firsthand for himself that all this stuff I'm talking about is true. But people have to find out for themselves.
It's 11 minutes to the top of the hour. We've not got too much longer with Fritz today, which is a shame. Listeners are always saying to me, Fritz, they're always saying, Richie, you should stay on a bit longer, do a bit of overtime. But the way the program is structured, we can't do that. It's got to be topped and tailed for 2 hours to go out to podcast. And we are live on radio stations as well, which will have programs to follow this. So we just can't do that. But I have asked Fritz to come on and do a couple of hours, do a full program in February, which he will do. I'm delighted, Fritz. I really am delighted to have met you. I really am thrilled because I think this is vital. It's really vital that people hear this. Karen is listening to the program in France, and Karen says, Richie, ask Fritz about the distressing behaviour displayed by police officers, not only in the United States, where people are getting shot for no reason by the police, but also in Britain, where it seems to be they use their tasers now and beat people with batons and display really, really aggressive, hateful behaviour. Are these police officers selected because they have been subjected to these techniques that Fritz is talking about, or is it something different? Is it something they learn on the job? That's a good question. What do you think, Fritz?
It's a combination. There was a police officer near here a number of years ago, and he talked to a couple of us, and he said that what they were doing is all the older policemen that had normal, he was an ex-cop, he had retired, and he was saying all of the good cops that are normal people were being sent to the small towns, and they were hiring sadistic young people that were just, the type of people that she's talking about that do this distressing behavior. So they are looking for these kind of people that power goes to their heads. And some of them are indeed, I know that some of these are indeed have been subjected to the trauma-based mind control. But I think some of these people may just simply be sadistic. Maybe as a child they got beat or something, and they got it in for everybody else. So it's probably a combination. Unfortunately, there seems to be something inherent in people that power is like alcohol. It people get drunk with power, and it just goes to their head.
Fritz, I want to mention your website again. It's Pentracks, pentracks.com, pentracks.com. Links there to the books Bloodline of the Illuminati and Illuminati Formula and everything else. There's also terrifically well-written articles on these subjects on Fritz's website as well. It really is. It's a distressing subject, but it seems to me, Fritz, that it's something that needs to be tackled now more than ever. This is a big subject. It's a way into people, to show people that this is happening. And, you know, I think back to last year, that Hampstead Heath child abuse case, and I'm wondering, you know, could I have done anything different? I mean, we did invite the family to come on, but they felt that I was a bit sceptical, that I was inclined to ask questions, which of course I'm going to do. You know, right. we don't bring people on here to insult them or mock them, but it's such an insane story that I would have been asking questions, but in a nice way, not in a mainstream media way. But, you know, the more I think about that case, the more it unsettles me. It really does, you know. I'm going to give you the last word, Fritz, because we've got about 2.5 minutes to go before we got to go. And those minutes are yours, because it's been terrific having you on the programme. It's been an honour. And I really do look forward to you coming back again next month to spend more time with us. But I'll give you the last word, my friend. You speak to our listeners, and then we'll wrap it up.
Okay, well, there was natural skepticism about this mind control. So I was like thinking, basically a parallel is like, let's say someone doesn't believe that there's a Boeing 747. So what you do is you show all the parts, how the parts are made, and so forth. Well, my books are that way. They show how this mind control, as complicated and complex as it is all put together. Every known technique of mind control is incorporated in a sophisticated package. And so if people want more information on how it's done and how the help comes about, you know, I have 2 big books, my formula book and its sequel, Deeper Insights, and they can get those at my website, pentrax.com. And when you see it all laid out and you see all the evidence and everything that's in my books, you know, you won't be a skeptic anymore. You'll be horrified, and you'll be wanting to do something about this, because it's a major problem. And until we can get this problem under control, we're going to continue being the victims of these politicians like Hitler that will wreak havoc with our lives.
Fritz, terrific to hear from you tonight. Thank you. I will get you the YouTube link to our conversation tomorrow, and you might share that then amongst your own supporters and followers. And please, as I said, and you have agreed to do it anyway, let's get you back on for a longer stint next month on the programme, when we can go further into these issues. It was a pleasure. It really was. Thanks for doing it.
Thank you, Richie. Thanks for having me on.
It was an honour. Fritz Springmeier on the programme, live from Portland, Oregon, where Fritz is based. Check out his website, pentrax.com. That's pentrax.com. Links there to loads and loads and loads of posts and articles about this subject, and also his books as well. Excuse me. Really terrific.